What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have an exciting video for you. We're going to be talking about some tips and tricks when it comes to creating After Effects facial VFX. So we're going to talk about tracking 2D elements to your face. We're going to talk about distorting the face. We're going to talk about tracking 3D elements onto your face. So if you guys are new here, consider subscribing. Leave a like on this video if you guys do enjoy. It helps me a huge amount with the YouTube algorithm, and comment down below anything you'd like to see from me next. So we're going to go in and get started here. The first thing that we need to mention is talking about shooting your footage. This is a very important step for making sure that you get proper results. Make sure you have solid lighting across your face. You don't want too much shadows. You don't want it to be too dark. And B, you want to make sure that there's minimal motion blur. So shoot at a faster shutter speed whenever you are taking these clips. The less motion blur there is, the easier it is for our tracking software to pick this up. And we're going to only be using After Effects to track this, no third-party tracking softwares. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So the first thing you want to do here, go up to the top left in your toolbar. You want to alt click on these shapes here until you're selecting the ellipse tool. You can also click Q to quickly bring that up. At the beginning of our timeline here, let's go ahead and just draw a little circle around our face. And then what you want to do is open up your mask here under your clip. Go ahead and show the controls for that. And then where it says mask path, we're going to want to toggle the animation to set a keyframe. So go ahead and click that. And now all you need to do here is just drag along your timeline and adjust this circle for any movement. So for example, if my head turns like this, I'm just going to hold down Control on my keyboard to bring up this little selector. And I'm going to move the mask a tiny bit over like that. And I'm just going to keep going through here and keeping that circle centered on my face. So making any adjustments, so easy as that. So we just created a couple of keyframes. Our face is in the middle of our circular mask. All right, so once you've masked around your face here, what you want to do is right click on your footage and you want to select pre-compose. So once this pops up, you just want to click move all attributes into the new composition. I'm going to name that face. This is very important, so make sure you check that on and we'll click OK. All right, so now we've isolated the part of the video that we want to focus our tracking on. So what you can do at this point is right click on your pre-comp, go up to track and stabilize, and you want to click track camera. So this is going to start analyzing. We'll let After Effects do the rest and come back once that's finished. So once your track goes through, this is what you should have. You should see all these little track markers over only your face. If you're not seeing that, just make sure you select this 3D camera tracker in your effect controls to show that. Now, the reason we did it this way is we don't want to track anything in the background. We want to focus all of our tracking power just in the face. So what you can do at this point is you can actually double click into this composition, select this layer here, and we can delete the mask. So with this selected, click M on your keyboard just to show the mask, select it and delete it. So now when we go back to our old composition that we are working on, so we'll click back here. And if we click on our 3D camera tracker, you'll see we have our full scene, but we only have the track points over the face. So now we're ready to start setting up our track reference, and then we can link things through there. So first off, I'm going to scroll a little bit through here. And if I scroll over my face, you can see this bullseye marker. I'm going to find a place where this bullseye is sort of large. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click create solid and camera. So what it did was it placed a little track marker on our face. And you see, if I scroll through here, that little purple plane is going to be sticking to the side of my face, which is what I want. So this is going to become our reference. So what we can do now is we can actually just hide the visibility of our track solid. So just click the little eyeball. I'm going to right click on that and rename that to track reference. So at this point, all of our tracking is finished and we can start bringing in different 2D or 3D elements to create some cool facial VFX. So I'm going to show you some things just to get your brain working. And then of course, you don't have to follow along with exactly what I'm doing. You can build on whatever I'm showing you and just use these steps to create some different unique things. So first, let me show you how we can track on some 2D assets. This is actually very simple. Let's go ahead and just use some text as an example. So I'll just create some text by grabbing my text tool, and I'll just write the word tutorial. Now, what you always want to do whenever you're setting this up with a 2D asset, you want to make sure it's enabled as a 3D layer. So always click toggle switches and modes here at the bottom until you can see these little switches. And you want to enable this 3D layer switch for whatever 2D layer you're trying to track on your face. So check that on. Now this is going to be moving in 3D space. You see how that's reacting to our camera, but we want this to be sort of pasted on our face. So what you can do is you can actually take this parent and link and you can just put that on track reference. You could also grab this little pick whip tool and drop it on the track reference as well. Does the exact same thing. Once you've done that, you always want to open up your layer here, go to transform and just click reset. So that'll place it in the exact area where our track solid is. So it's a little bit too small, so let's scale that up. and change around our orientation. As I press play, this text is perfectly going to be matched onto my face here, where we had that initial track solid, and it's going to be turning with the momentum of my face. So that's just a quick example. If you guys want to see more 2D elements, I'm going to leave a tutorial down below where I did this crazy freeze frame face effect using this exact tracking method. What I want to focus on more in this tutorial is using some of the 3D things we've talked about in previous tutorials and start tracking that onto our face. So first, we're going to use a plugin called Element 3D just to bring in some basic 3D objects. And second, we're going to go in and create a 3D replica of our face using a Blender add-on called Face Builder. There's actually a 14-day free trial if you want to try that out, and then you can pay for a license. If you want an alternate method, I made a full guide covering a bunch of free ways to create 3D characters, so I'm sure you can find something in that if you don't want to use Face Builder. I'm going to show you how to set up something like this, where you can place any sort of 3D object. So we have all these flowers here. I use some basic Element 3D deformation to actually make them move around and kind of stretch. So first, let's set up the Element 3D plugin. If you guys are interested in this, I'll leave a link down below where you can check it out. In my opinion, it's a must-have for doing any 3D stuff within After Effects. So I'm going to right click down here and I'm going to go to new and I'm going to create a solid. We'll name that 3D. Over on my right in my effects, I'm going to go ahead and search for the Element 3D plugin. So I'll drag that onto my solid here. Now with this on my solid, I can go up to my effect controls and click scene setup. So with Element 3D open, let's go ahead and find whatever 3D object we want. You can go on something like Turbo Squid, CG Trader. Here's the 3D object I used in this circumstance. You just want to make sure you're downloading either a C4D or OBJ model because that's what's compatible with Element 3D. So you can search for that format in most of these sites. Again, just search for OBJ or C4D and download that. Once you've downloaded that, back in Element 3D, you want to click the import button and let's navigate into the folder where we saved that 3D model. So let's open up these. I'll click use auto normals and okay. So step one, if it's a little bit too small, right here, this should be the first thing that's open. Click normalize size. A lot of these models come with their own textures. So if you want to, you can load in the pre-made textures that come with the download just by selecting this little object, selecting these materials here and loading in the texture into the diffuse. If you guys don't have that, you can use the Element 3D Pro shaders or just select a basic color. So I'm just going to make these flowers the colors that they should be, like this, by changing the diffuse color. So once you have your model set up, just go ahead and click OK. And now let's link that with our tracking. So the first thing you always want to do here, whenever you're working with this, instead of changing around world transform, you always want to go up to group 1 or whatever group your object was in Element. You want to go to create group null and you want to click create. This will create a little null object here, which serves as the control point for moving this around. So I'll rename this to flower control. And if I open up my transform options here for this little layer, I'll open that. If I take my anchor point, you can see how this is moving and controlling the 3D object. So we can do the exact same thing to link up our 3D object with our already set up tracking reference. So all you need to do is go to this parent and link dropdown and select the track reference layer that we set up earlier. And then the exact same steps, you open up your transform here and you just click reset. It's going to paste that in the exact area where we created our track solid. You're going to see how this is completely linked up with my face. So to change around where it is on your face, just go back into your flower control, and instead of changing your positioning, you want to change your anchor point. So say you want to put it over here. Because this is 3D, it's going to be kind of backed up onto our face. So to kind of fix that, I'm just going to grab the orientation here and make that more flat. So it looks like it's sort of sitting on the surface of my face. And easy as that, we now have our 3D object perfectly tracked onto our face. You can do this with any 3D object using Element. So to recreate our own 3D face and composite that back over our footage, what you want to do is go to a part of the video where you're looking straight forward. I'm going to turn off these 3D objects here and just have our base footage. And we want to take a screenshot here as a reference for our 3D face. So I'm going to go up to composition, save frame as, file. That's going to open up our render queue. And at this point, you guys can go to output module and you can change the format to a Photoshop file if you want to do some touch up before you save it, or even easier, just put this on PNG sequence and it'll save it as a singular PNG. So click OK. Output to, you can click that and you can choose where you'd like to save this file and then click render. And it should be extremely fast because we're only saving one frame. So at this point, you now need to choose how you're going to recreate your 3D face. Like I said earlier, I made a full guide on creating 3D characters characters of your likeness. I'm going to be using Blender's Keen Tools Face Builder, which I think works great for this. Of course, Blender is free, so we'll fire that up, and I'll leave a link below if you guys want to pick that up. I recommend you guys do if you are interested in starting to learn 3D. And of course, you guys need to install the add-on. I'll leave a link below for installing it. It's very easy. You just need to download it from their website. Go to Edit, Preferences, and then down here where it says add-ons, you just want to click install and load in the file that you download from their website. Once you've done that, you can click this little arrow here in the top right, and you can select this Face Builder tab. All you need to do is click Create a New Head. So this is going to create the mesh of our head here. We can now load in that image that we saved from After Effects to project that texture onto this mesh. So all you need to do is click this Add Images button, and then navigate to wherever you saved that screenshot from After Effects. I'm going to load in the face.png. To be able to start sculpting this to your liking, you just need to click on the face.png. I also want to mention, if you want better results for this full 3D model, you guys can go through and take some more screenshots of whenever your face is turned. That'll allow you to sculpt the side of your face, because Face Builder allows you to input multiple images here. So you can just keep clicking Add Images, load in those side profiles, and you can sculpt with the side profiles as well to get a more realistic shape. I'm just going to do this one picture here for now so that we can load in the front. So just select it and it'll open up this screen here. So this is very easy in terms of the sculpting. All you need to do is click and it creates a little pinpoint, and you just drag that to different parts of your face. So when you click again, it'll create a second pinpoint, and then you can just click and drag to start sculpting that. I'm going to line up my eyes, my eyebrows. So once you've done all that and everything is fit the way that you like it, all you need to do is open up this little texture tab here. So I'll open that. And once you've opened that, you want to go ahead and click Create Texture. So let's just click OK. You're going to see all these numbers start to flash. It's going to generate our texture on the mesh. So here is what that looks like. If you only use one image, you're most likely going to have all these kind of black torn edges here. So to quickly fix that, all you need to do is go over to where it says Expand Edges. I like setting that to something like 3. And then I'll go ahead and click Create Texture once more. So that should patch up a lot of the issues here. I think this is looking good enough. We're gonna use masking anyway, so it doesn't need to be perfectly accurate. It just needs to match a lot of our facial shape. So once you guys are happy with your results, all you need to do is go up in the top left and click File, Export. And since we're using Element 3D here, I'm gonna export this as an OBJ. So go ahead and save that. I already have. We also need to export our texture here. So backwards says texture on the right. Just go ahead and click this export button and then save that in the exact same folder. And now you have all the assets you need to bring this back into After Effects. And let's set up a new Element 3D layer so that we can bring in that 3D head and composite it the exact same way. So I'm going to right click down here and go to New Solid. We'll name this 3D Head, and then I'll go to my effects and presets, and we'll drop the Element 3D plugin on there once more. So drop that onto our solid, and then in our effect controls, click Scene Setup. All right, so at this point, all you need to do is click Import. We already have our files already set up and ready to go. So let's just find where we saved those. So mine was here, and then again, I'll check on Normalize Size. So here is the mesh of my 3D head. Now we just need to place on the texture. So open up this little 3D model drop down, and then for this material here, select that, and we're going to load in our texture into our diffuse. Click Load Texture. So mine was right here, KT Face Builder Texture. Click Open, and then click OK. You can see how this is very glossy. I'm going to go ahead and change this from a physical shader to standard. See, there's a lot of these different shadows, so you can change around these little presets in the bottom here. I liked using 100 ambient. Thought that gave me a very nice neutral tone. That looks perfect for me, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now we just need to set up our tracking reference and match that onto our face. So to do that, we'll do the exact same steps we did for setting everything else up. We're going to go up to Group 1 in Element 3D. We're going to click Create Group Null and then Create. And now we have this control layer. So I'll rename that to Face Control, is parent that to our track reference. So let's just grab my pick whip and drop that on our track reference, just like that. And then we can open up our transform here, click Reset, and that'll get placed in the correct area. So now I'm just going to use my anchor point. I'm going to scale. I'm going to set everything correct. Also, keep in mind, this 3D head, it just defaults back to the normal lighting. So let's fix that. We'll select 3D head. And then under render settings here, we're going to go to lighting and then add lighting. I think I put it on 100 ambient. So now it's back to normal. If you guys want to, you can go and search for curves once again and try and color correct this some more. So just by changing this, trying to match that with the footage, I think that looks pretty good. Let's go back to our face control here, and then still using our anchor points, match this a little bit better by selecting the head, clicking T to show opacity, and just lowering that a tiny bit. Now you can see how those sort of line up. And then I'll use my face control here just to keep trying to align. All right, guys, so once you have tweaked with your settings here to transform and move your face over top, here's what that looks like for me. Again, we're going to mask a bunch of it, so it doesn't need to be perfectly accurate, but I think this is pretty well lined up. Also, make sure if you need to, you're moving the Z distance back just so this isn't kind of hanging over too much. Now all we need to do is alter this 3D model in some way, and then mask the parts over top of it so it looks like our own face is deforming. So I'm going to show you a quick little Element 3D trick. You guys can apply any other preset or plugin or do any other thing that you know of to be able to change this around. The thing that I want to show you is this cool little built-in deform control that exists within Element. So if you select the 3D face layer and you go up to particle look under group 1, you have this little deform drop down here. So if you enable this, you have all of these different controls: taper, twist, bend, noise, deform, offset, to be able to change and bend this 3D model. So pretty cool, some built-in stuff, nothing as crazy as MoGraph and C4D or any of the other different things you can do in a more advanced 3D software, but it is pretty interesting. So I'm gonna open up noise and we'll put this on 3D distortion here. And if I take the intensity of that 3D distortion and start to bump that up, you can see how I'm able to do some crazy stuff. So you can change around any of these settings. You'll be able to see how I'm completely just destroying this 3D model and blowing it all out. If you want to, you could have it all crazy like that. The cool thing about this is you can also keyframe this. So if I set the intensity back to 0 and I set up a keyframe, I can drag a bit and then I can take that intensity and just go crazy with it. So if I press play, here's what that's going to look like. It's slowly over time just going to stretch the face, distort the 3D model. Atrocity that you're seeing here, which is pretty cool. You can keep it like that. So now, since we have our distortion, all we need to do is blend this so it doesn't look so ugly and like there's a cutout over our original face. So to do that, we're gonna do a bit of masking. The only issue is it doesn't allow you to directly mask right onto an Element 3D layer. You see, if I just kind of create a mask like that, it's not going to be proper. You see how they have all these cut off edges. So to be able to sidestep that, we need to create a reference layer for our mask. So let's right click down to this gray space once more, and we're going to go to new and then solid, and we're going to name this face mask. So with this face mask layer, let's place that in a layer above our 3D face, and then you can turn off the visibility. And what we're going to do here is we're going to actually set up our mask. So if you want this only to affect the eyes, you can select the eyes. If you want it to only be around the shape of the face, you can do something like that. So draw out the basic shape of your mask. And then for this 3D face layer, we're going to click toggle switches and modes until you see this track matte drop down. You want to take that track matte drop down and put it as alpha matte face mask. So that way the mask of this layer is being applied to our element layer. So that's an easy little workaround to be able to mask your element layer. Just make sure that this face mask layer always stays one layer above your 3D face. And now we can go in and change the mask so we can add a bit of feather so it's not so rough. Open up the mask options and bump out the feather. You see how that's blended now. So at first glance, it's hard to be able to tell that this is a 3D face, and that's what allows you to be able to utilize this to blend and create cool, unique facial distortion that you wouldn't be able to do normally. Now again, in my example here, I'm turning my head, so the issue with that is it's actually moving my mask. So what I could do is keyframe my mask, and as I turn my head, I could try and move that along with it. Or what I could do is just shoot footage where I'm not really rotating my face, just have the straightforward look. So feel free to go through and experiment with that just by changing around your mask options, changing around the deformation. You're able to get some really interesting stuff, such as something like this. Every time I've messed around with this, I've gotten some really cool different results. So have fun doing that. I'm going to keyframe this little distort value, and as we go through here, I'll kind of just add a little bit more movement in there. So have fun with that, guys. If you guys use this tutorial or any of the techniques that I talked about, send it to me on Instagram so I can check it out, or leave it in our community Discord. I always love seeing the things you guys put together with these tutorials. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you guys in the next one.